So welcome again to the RealCare Baby Program online training. Our agenda today, the topics we're going to cover, we're going to go over, do I have everything I need to use baby? How do I set up my baby and the control center? So with the do I have everything I need to use the baby, we're going to go over the parts that would have come with your order, kind of explain each part. When we go over the how do I set up my baby and control center, we're going to go over the different lights on the back of the baby, how to charge it. We're going to go over best charging practices and installing the control center to your computer. After that, we'll go over how do I use my baby and the control center software. In which we will go over how to add the baby to the computer, how to run demonstrations, how to program a simulation, the different abuses that are recorded, the different shutdowns, along with how to retrieve a report and how to interpret a report. Then we have common operating questions, some of which will be answered throughout the presentation here, and in which I will answer those as they, I'll even do a recap at the very end here. And then finally, the different ways that you can go to access product support if needed. So first, there we go. So do you have everything you need? We're going to go over the parts for the baby and what you would have received. So you have the RealCare program package materials, which would have come with the RealCare Baby 3 Infant Simulator, the accessories and the program materials, and the curriculum and software for programming the babies, retrieving reports, and the grading. We're going to begin with looking at the baby. So each baby comes dressed in a two-piece outfit, pink for female, blue for male. Each baby weighs roughly around 7 to 8 pounds and about 21 to 22 inches long. They smell a little bit like baby powder, and they also are anatomically correct, male and female. With the RealCare Baby supplies and accessories, each baby will include the two-piece outfit, which you had just seen in the previous slide, a sleeper, a bodysuit, 5 wristbands, a set of diapers, one that has a green patch, one that has a yellow patch, a bottle, and an ID. I'll go through each part here. Now, the two-piece outfit, the sleeper, and the bodysuit, they have sensors sewn into the clothing. And what this does is that the baby has sensors throughout its body, and it can recognize what articles of clothing the baby is wearing at any time during the simulation. When we go over how to interpret the reports, I will explain how that is recorded. Now, the clothing and the diapers are machine washable, cold, gentle cycle, and we recommend that you line dry the line dry the clothing, excuse me. That is just keeps down the wear and tear and everything. Otherwise, you can, if you want to use a dryer, you can put the clothing and the diapers in a dryer, but make sure that the dryer is set to low or air fluff. Any higher than that could damage the sensors that are in the clothing. So again, wash the clothing in cold, gentle cycle. Line dry is best, but otherwise, if you use the dryer, make sure to set to low or air fluff. Now the bottles, they have on their tips a magnet. Now that magnet responds to a magnetic sensor that's in the baby's lips. And I'll show you a feeding demonstration later on in the presentation here. But the bottle, if you ever needed to test your bottle, take a metal paper clip. If the tip of your bottle can pick up a metal paper clip, then your bottle is just fine. Now, the nipple of the bottle is just rubber. It does not have any latex. So if there's a latex concern, none of the accessories or the baby come with any latex. Now, if the tip of the bottle were to flake off, the nipple were to flake off, chip off, rub off, or anything, again, if your bottle can pick up a metal paper clip, then your bottle is just fine. You can still send it out even if the tip of the nipple has been rubbed off. Now the IDs, they work off of a wireless transmitter. Each ID has a 5-digit code embossed on the top of it. It uses the letters A through F and the numbers 0 through 9. I'll go through that when I go over the programming of the baby. Now, to attach the ID to the student, you'll use one of your wristbands. Now, the wristbands are a one and done. It comes with 5. The baby automatically comes with 5 wristbands, in which if you need more, you can always purchase some more. But when you attach the wristband to the student wrist, make sure that you have like about a finger width between the wrist and the wristband. That way it's not too tight where it's cutting off circulation, and it's not too loose where they can pull the wristband off. People do ask, it doesn't matter which way that the ID should be put to the student. It doesn't matter, but it's more comfortable if the numbers are facing out. So you would just slip the wristband under through the little slits on the side of the ID, and then attach it to the student's wrist. And the only time it can come off is when it's been brought back to you, and you can cut that off with a scissors. Now, you may also have purchased the optional RealCare Baby accessory bundle. Now, this is an optional purchase if you were to have done that, but it would have come with the outerwear, which is like a big, furry, fluffy fleece outerwear, usually for winter conditions. Would come with a diaper bag where you can keep all of the clothing and accessories in, a receiving blanket, and a car seat infant carrier with a car seat detection kit. The car seat detection kit just has 2 little cards that are identified as the car seat. When installed into the car seat, it will report the length of time that the baby was in the car seat. There are instructions and an online video that shows you how to attach the car seat detection tags to the car seat, and it can be used on any car seat at all. So, and the reason why there's 2 is that you want to put those where the shoulder blades rest against the car seat. So that way when the baby, if it were to shift to the left or to the right, it's still in contact with the car seat detection kit. Now next, come on, there we go, is the RealCare Program Starter Kit. So if this is your first time with the babies, you would receive, if you purchased the RealCare Program Starter Kit, you have the X-Stick wireless communication adapter. Now, if you've had the RealCare 2 before, or you've had RealCare Baby 3s before, if you already have an X-Stick or the old blue communication pod, what we call the COM pod, you don't need a new X-Stick. So if you have the old COM pod, which we used from 2006 to 2008, that works perfectly fine with the RealCare 3s. Or if you have an X-Stick, way back from 2008, you don't need another X-Stick. Any of those blue pods or the green X-Stick will work with today's baby. Now, the X-Stick wireless communication adapter, it's just a wireless transmitter. It sends the data from your computer into your babies, and it receives the data from the babies and puts it into your computer. The X-Stick, it looks like a flash drive, but it's not a true flash drive. It does not contain any software. It will not function, and your computer will not recognize the X-Stick until you have downloaded the control center from our website. The reason why I mention that is that if in a year from now, and you go to use the babies, and your computer does not have the control center on it anymore, that software will not be found on the X-Stick. Just got to go to our website, download it, and then you'll be able to utilize the X-Stick again. Now, with one X-Stick, that'll program an unlimited number of babies. So you don't need a 1-for-1. So you don't need a one X-Stick for every baby. So if you've got 25 babies in one X-Stick, that's all that you need. Now, next you have the chargers. We have a single charger or the 5-baby charging station. So the 5-baby charging station comes for orders of 5 babies or more. And I will go over how to plug the babies into the charger in a few more slides. And then you have the instructor key. The instructor key, it's a silver key. It has a flat nose on it. The key says Southco on it, and it's only used to remove the baby's battery cover. Uh, you don't need to give that to the students. It's actually just for you. And the only time you really ever use the instructor key is when you're on the phone with product support, because there's many times that we're going to ask you to take off the battery cover, because sometimes we need a serial number, or you might need to press a reset button that you can't see from the outside. So always have the instructor key in a location that you can grab if you were to ever contact product support. Now, next you have the online access to the RealCare resources. Now, with your order, you would have received a quick start guide. And at the bottom of the first page of the quick start guide is the link to your RealCare downloads. On this screen, with the RealCare downloads, you will find the Control Center software. You will have the RealCare curriculum, along with the participant care video and the participant care card. Now, we do have these available on another link, which I'll show in next few slides and everything, but hold on to once you've actually accessed this particular web page, this RealCare downloads for the RealCare babies, bookmark it, because you'll want to go to it. You'll probably be accessing it more than you think, especially with new school years. You may find that your control center is no longer there and you needed a fresh download. This is where you'll access that. So take about a minute here. Does anybody at this moment have a question about any of the accessories that came with the baby? Again, this is being recorded, so if you just jumped in, you'll be able to review the whole presentation at your own convenience. So I'll just kind of wait a moment here, see if anyone has any questions about the accessories that came with the baby. I should mention again to use the chat for any questions. So anybody who just jumped in, use the chat feature to mention any questions. I will proceed on, but if you're still in the process of typing, I'll answer your question as we go on. Now, next is, how do you set up the RealCare baby and the Control Center software? First, if you have a baby with you, let's look at the baby itself. Before plugging in the baby, let's get an idea of what the back of the baby means, because that's a lot of information just on the back of the baby. So if you take your baby and put it face down, you'll see that you have some lights and some outlets and some recess buttons. So at the top of the battery cover, you have the recessed button. Now, when that button is pressed down, the baby should chime. Now, that recess button has two purposes. It's used to add the baby to the control center. And once the baby is added to the control center, you typically don't have to redo that, unless if your computer techs do some type of maintenance, get you a new computer, or it's a new school year. It can also be used to turn the baby off early, which I'll cover later on in the presentation when we go over the early shutdown modes. So the recess button, when pressed, you'll hear a chime, but it is used to add the baby to the computer, and it is also used to turn the baby off early. Now, there are 3 lights on the back of the baby. The red light is your battery indicator. Now, if the red light is off, that means your batteries are dead. Baby cannot function, it cannot communicate with the control center if the red light is off. Plug the baby into the charger, red light will go on. Now, if you have a solid red light, that means that our batteries are at a full charge, 40% or higher. But if you have a flashing red light, that means that your batteries are below 40% and you should continue to charge the babies. The next slide will go over how to charge the babies, how long you should charge them and how long they'll last, and battery maintenance as well. Now, if the flashing red light, you can typically get an evening out of that, depending on how long the baby's been in the charger. Now, the green light is your charging indicator. The green light will only turn on when you plug the charger into the baby. So plug the charger into the baby, green light goes on. You have got to see a solid green light. If you've got a solid green light, that means that power is going into the batteries. That means your batteries are charging. If you have a flashing green light, it could mean that the batteries are warming up, and it would anywhere from 15 minutes to an hour it might take for that flashing green light to go solid. However, if your green light has been flashing for longer than, let's say, an hour, and you unplug it and all batteries go off, that flashing green light means that your batteries are not charging and you'll need to contact product support. So again, when you plug that baby into the charger, you'll see a solid green light. Now the green light will stay solid until either you unplug the charger from the baby or baby gets a full charge. Now beneath that, you have a yellow light. That is your communication indicator. That light will flicker real quickly once every 15 to 20 seconds. That's normal. So if your students are home with the baby and they're concerned, they look at the lights on the back of the baby and they see, oh, my yellow light just flickered. Yeah, that's normal. Don't worry about that. That's a communication indicator. It will always flicker once every 15 to 20 seconds. The only time that the yellow light goes solid is when you are adding the baby to the control center. So to recap on the lights, the red light is your battery indicator. When it's off, that means that the batteries are dead. A solid red light means you have a full charge of 40% or higher. If it's flashing, it means that the batteries are below 40% and you should continue to charge the baby. The green light is your charging indicator. A solid green light, again, the green light only turns on when the baby is plugged into the charger. A solid green light means that your batteries are charging. A flashing green light that has been flashing for more than an hour means that your batteries are not charging and you need to contact product support. The yellow light is a communication indicator, and that light always flickers once every 15 to 20 seconds. Now, underneath the yellow light, you have your charging port, and that's where you will plug the charger into the baby. Now, underneath the charging port, actually underneath this diaper, you can't see it in this picture, but if you were to look at your baby, there's a metal bolt just underneath that little diaper area here. So, and that is the bolt for the battery cover. So that secures the battery cover to the baby, and that is where you will use the instructor key to take off the battery cover. Yep, there we go. Now, charging the baby. When it comes, charging the baby takes about 4 to 6 hours. That is the typical length of time for a baby to charge the baby fully. What we recommend is that you plug the baby into the charger the night before simulation, let it charge up all night long, and then unplug the baby the morning of the simulation or when the students come to pick up the babies. It is perfectly fine to have the babies plugged into the charger longer than the 4 to 6 hours. Now, the reason why we recommend that you plug the baby into the charger the night before a simulation, I cannot tell you how many times that an instructor, let's say the baby is going out from a Friday through a Monday, they come into the office on Friday, they're going to plug the babies in, and then students come over, they've got permission forms, they've got questions, they need this or that, they're turning in assignments. The instructor gets so distracted that they forget to plug the babies in. Now it's time to send the babies out, and they don't have enough power. So that's why get them plugged in on Thursday night or the night before simulation, let them charge up all night long, and then unplug them the morning of the simulation or when the students come to pick up the babies, and that will ensure that you have a full charge. Now, with the RealCare 3, a full charge lasts roughly around 3.5 days. So if you're doing like from a Friday through a Monday simulation, that would be enough charge for a full charge would last roughly that amount of time. Now, if you are running a simulation that's going longer than that, let's say you are running a simulation that is going like 7 days, the batteries do not have enough strength to run that length of time. So about day 3 is when you're going to need to have the baby brought in and then plugged into a charger, or you send the charger home with the student and they charge the baby when it's in use. And you can charge the baby when it is in use. Probably need to unplug the charger when you go to care for the baby. Now, babies, if they're going to be in storage for long periods of time. About once every 3 months, it is recommended that once every 3 months, you take the baby out of the storage and then plug it into the charger. Now, any rechargeable product, any rechargeable battery does require regular charging to maintain the life of the battery. So if you have a program that the baby is only going to be in use every other year, so you've got it this 1 year, but it's not going to be touched a whole nother year for the next year, and it'll be resumed the following year. That year that the baby is not being used, you've got to take it out of storage about once every 3 months, charge it up, put it back into storage. Now, long periods of time without a charge can damage a battery, a rechargeable battery, to where it cannot hold a charge anymore. If you have a situation where your batteries are not holding up, they're going into regular battery shutdowns. If you're getting into losing all power when the babies are unplugged from the charger, contact product support. There's a few things that we can try with you over the phone to help revive the batteries. Now, for storing the baby, what is recommended is that you put the baby in a plastic bag that's going to protect the vinyl, and then store them in ideal conditions are in a cool, dry place. If that is not possible, if you have a situation where they can only be kept in a shed or something, that's fine. If it's not temperature controlled, that's fine. And keep them in a plastic bag. Now, a plastic bag protects the vinyl. So if there's any kind of construction or maintenance in the building and there's dust and debris flying around, having them in the bag will protect the vinyl and everything. But if the babies are stored in a non environmental controlled and not temperature controlled environment and it gets hot in there, when you take the babies out of storage, let them sit for about a good day to allow the vinyl and the electronics to adjust to the new temperature before you plug the charger into the baby, because sometimes dramatic temperature changes would cause the baby to get some condensation into the body. Allowing it to sit for 24 hours will help to dry things out. Now I'm going to switch to a camera here because I'm going to show you about the charging of the babies real quick. Now, being that this is wrong button, still there. Okay. Okay. Can't really tell, but can people see me? If you could just mention in the chat if you can see me at all. Kind of looking at my camera here, so hopefully people can see me. Now, if you can't see me, I do apologize, but what I'm going to be going through here with you on the charging of the babies is actually on our website. On how to set up the babies, there's a video on how to charge the babies. Somebody has mentioned, yes, I can see it. Thank you. Good. Okay. So I've got the one camera here. I can't zoom in or out or anything. So I do apologize if this looks a little weird and everything. So when charging the babies, again, just to kind of review on the different chargers. So this right here is a single charger. Now, the reason why you know this is a single charger, you've got one cord coming out of it, and it can only be plugged into one baby. So what you'll do is you'll take your charger and you'll plug that into a wall outlet or plug it into a power strip and then plug it into the back of the baby. Okay, make sure green light turns on, make sure green light is solid. If you've got a flashing green light and it's been flashing for longer than about an hour, contact product support. So let that charge for about 4 to 6 hours. Again, best if you charge it overnight, the night before a simulation. Now, if you have a order that came with 5 babies or more, you would have received the 5-baby multi-charger. The new 5-baby multi-charger, you've got this power supply, this little brick that we call it. It says Reality Works on the top of it. There's a green light on that. And you've got this cord right here that plugs into this multi-splitter, this little multi-splitter right here. You've got this red plug. I'm going to undo this here. Red could be pink, depends upon the mold when it came out of the oven. And this, so you have this cord right here, plugs into the orange plug right here, and then it branches off into 5 babies. Then you have your cable that connects from the orange, I'm sorry, not from the orange, from the power supply. Connect that into here. Again, plug into a wall outlet or a surge protector. Make sure green light goes on. And then you can plug up to 5 babies. Plug into charger, into baby, make sure green light is on. Make sure it's not flashing. If it is flashing, it's been flashing for longer than 1 hour, make sure you contact product support. Now, one thing to be sure is that you do not take the single charger, this guy right here, and do not plug it into the 5-baby multi-splitter. The single charger is designed for 1 baby only. If you were to accidentally plug the single charger into the 5-baby splitter and plug up 5 babies, it's not going to damage the babies. The babies will be just fine, but you might damage the single charger. So always remember that this guy right here, this big brick that says Reality Works on it and has the different cords right here, that plugs into the 5-baby multi-splitter. Now, while the babies are charging, I'll go back to the presentation here. So now while the babies are charging, what you need to do is to install the control center to your computer. Now there are 2 locations. First one again is at the bottom of that quick start guide that you have. Bottom of the first page of the quick start guide, you have your RealCare downloads. That's where you will find the software for the control center software for both Windows and Mac, or this link here, the top one, which is to our main RealCare Baby and Control Center product support webpage. So the download is free. Most instructors require their IT staff to install the Control Center software. So you can always forward this link to them and they can install the Control Center. So you have those 2 links right here. Again, this presentation is being recorded and sent to you, so you can access these links whenever you need to. And once the Control Center software is installed and you've got a baby that's charged or charging, you can now start to use your baby and the Control Center. So now, how do you use the baby and the Control Center software? Well, the first thing you got to do is you're going to need to add the babies to the Control Center. Now, before you open the Control Center, you've got to take that green X stick and plug it into the computer. So once you've got babies charging or charged, and you've installed the Control Center software. Now, before you open the Control Center software, you have to plug the X stick into the computer. Once you've plugged the X stick into the computer, wait about a good 10, 15 seconds, allow your computer to recognize a communication device, and then open the Control Center software. Sorry about that. Now I'm going to switch screens right here. I'm going to open up the Baby Control Center. Okay, if I've got this right, you should see my computer screen right here. There's this icon at the very bottom. Oop, there we go. I think we got it now. All right. So make sure X stick is plugged in. Open the Control Center software. Make sure the computer recognizes the communication device. And that will bring up, especially if it's the first time that you've opened the Control Center, you'll now have your getting started, just kind of a step through of the Control Center. Now let's see here, make sure. Here we go. There we are. So right now is just a little getting started tutorial. You can always click this little button right here that says do not remind me for 120 days and skip tutorial, and that will just take you right to the Control Center main screen here. But we're going to step through this real briefly here. So to get started, I'm just going to click next here, and this is going to show you this is your dashboard where it all begins. So giving you a little snippet of what the Control Center looks like. So at the top left corner of the Control Center, you'll see it says File, Edit, and Help. Now the help is going to be pretty important for you. So if you ever needed to access the Control Center and RealCare Baby product support webpage, where you'll find the Getting Started tutorial video, the other additional documents, the help guide, other video training tutorials on there, just click the help at the top left corner, click help, and that'll take you right to the RealCare Baby and Control Center software webpage. You can also follow along with this tutorial, or you can check for updates. Now on the left side of the Control Center, you have a blue baby that says all, and that tells you the total number of babies that you have on your Control Center. So if you have 5 babies, that blue baby will always stay at 5. The orange baby that says available means here are the number of babies that you have that you can program for a simulation. And once you program those babies, they will filter into that active baby. So let's say you've programmed 3 babies, you've got 5 babies in total, you program 3 of them, your available will change to 2, your active will change to 3, and when the simulations are over with and the Control Center is retrieving the reports, the babies will filter into that report due baby, that one wearing the red diaper, and it will just filter in there until it has retrieved the reports, and that'll change back to 0 and re-update the Control Center filters. It'll send the reports into the Control Center, which we'll go over that later in the training here. Come on. There we go. Now, any of your reports will be sent into a report folder on the left side of the Control Center. You can create as many report folders as you want. You are not limited. There are 2 folders that are default. You have the no class folder and you have the trash folder. You can't rename or delete either one of those, but you can delete what's inside of them. So the default folder is just the no class folder is the default folder. So if you haven't set up a class, any reports will filter right into there at the end of a simulation. Now, it's also important that you pay attention to the wireless communication adapter icon at the bottom right corner of the Control Center. In order for you to do anything with the babies, that icon has to be green. So if that icon is green, that means software is ready to use. It means that the computer recognizes the communication device. If it is yellow, it means that it is sending or receiving information. Typically takes around a couple of seconds to maybe a couple of minutes for that to go to green. If you have an orange icon and it has been orange for like 3 minutes or longer, contact product support. We're going to help you try to clear out the commands going in there. If it hasn't cleared out in about 3 minutes, no point in waiting longer. Better contact product support. If it is red, that means that the X stick is not recognized. What we recommend here is that you close the Control Center, unplug the X stick, wait about 5 seconds, plug it back in, wait about 10 to 15 seconds before opening the Control Center. If it is still red, contact product support. That's an indication that your computer is not recognizing the communication device, and there are a number of things that we can try with you over the phone to get the computer to recognize the X stick. Now, once you've added the babies to the control center, you have that toolbar up at the top. It has demo, program baby, birth certificates, get reports, stop, maintenance, daycare, and delete babies. Now, the demo, which will be after we've added the baby, we'll go through a demonstration, but the demonstration where you can do individual care events or a sequence of events just in the classroom. Then you have the program baby. This is where you'll set up the simulation. You'll program in the ID that the student wears, the starting and the stop time, quiet times if necessary, and that's where you'll set up the baby. Then birth certificates, if you wanted to print a birth certificate for that simulation, students sometimes like to have that. You'll be able to print the birth certificate as many times as you need to, but once you program the baby for a new simulation, you won't be able to go back and reprint that old birth certificate. Get report is used to retrieve a report mid-simulation. So if the baby is in the room with you and you kind of want to see how things are going, you can do the get report because that will not interfere with the operation. It will not stop the baby. One thing I will mention, and this will be covered again later in the presentation, in the training, is that your communication range between the babies and the control center is only 20 feet. So to get a report, the baby has to be in the room with you. Next is the stop. That stops whatever the baby's doing, whether it's in a simulation or a demonstration or a troubleshooting. When you click stop, baby stops and it automatically retrieves a report. Now for maintenance, that's where you can go to run a troubleshooting test. Sometimes babies require an update. That's where you can go to update the babies. And then you have the daycare. This is a daycare on demand. So if you have one of those, if you're running a program that's running during the school week, but you're not having the baby active during the day, this is where the students would bring the baby to you. You'd put the baby in a daycare. In daycare, baby doesn't make any sound whatsoever. And then when the students pick up the babies to take them back home again, you'll turn the daycare off and the babies will resume the simulation. And then you have the delete baby. Only use the delete baby to delete babies you no longer have. So if you have 5 babies and you donate 2 of them to somebody else and you don't need those 2 babies on the control center, that's where you're going to do the delete baby. Deleting, again, remember, deleting, you only use the delete baby to delete babies that you no longer have. If you have a situation where a baby is not responding to commands from the control center, don't delete the baby. Deleting the baby doesn't stop it from what it's doing. Deleting the baby takes it away from the control center. So if you've got to still work with the baby and you delete it, you're going to have to re-add it. So only use the delete baby to delete babies you no longer have. And then you have the add baby, which we'll be doing very shortly here. And the only time, again, you really do the add baby is when you first set up the control center. You typically don't have to re-add the babies. I will say that most instructors, when they come back in the fall, the new school year, they're going to have to re-add the babies. Because many times you get a new computer or they wipe everything clean and there are no more babies. Or sometimes if they do some type of maintenance update on your computer, that can take away communication from the babies. So don't be surprised if a new school year comes around and your babies are missing or they're there but they're not communicating, that you'll have to re-add the babies. Now, once your baby is added, it's going to give you the baby name. It's going to show you the battery level, the communication status, the communication, if it's green, red, or yellow, and the status of the baby. And then again here, if you click that link where it says the RealCare product support site, that'll take you directly to our RealCare support site. And then that's where you can find the videos, the tutorials, the other documents, and everything. So to get started, first thing we got to do, when you open up the control center for the very first time, you'll see that there are no babies. Now, before you can proceed to adding the babies, you got to make sure this icon at the bottom right corner is green. You cannot add the babies if that icon is red or if it is yellow. Now, to add the baby, click at the top left corner where it says add. Okay, so now we have a blank screen. Now, to add the babies, you'll need a paper clip. Now, some people will use the nose of the instructor key. That's okay. Now, I've noticed sometimes that the nose of the instructor key they're not always the same length. So if you try that, don't be surprised if you're not getting down in there enough. It's probably because the nose is too short or it's too wide. So that's why a paper clip is always best to try to add the baby to the control center. Now, hopefully you can see this. Top of the battery cover, you have that little recess button right there. You'll take your paper clip and you got to hold that button in for 2 continuous chimes, release, yellow light goes solid, and then within a few seconds, sometimes it takes up to 3 minutes, the baby will appear on the screen. Now you got to hold it in, 2 chimes, release. Don't press release, press release. Hold it in. When you hear the second chime, release, yellow light goes solid. If you accidentally hold it in for 3 chimes, don't worry, just wait about 5 more seconds and then try it again. So I'm gonna press in, 1, 2, okay. Yellow light goes solid. Now in a moment, baby's gonna appear on the screen here. There we are, okay. This is baby 2FF1. Now, this baby has been used before in simulations and demonstrations, so that's why we have a gender already assigned. When you add the baby for the very first time, it's not going to have a gender that you can set if you choose when you program the baby for a simulation. Now, what we have here, the baby 2FF1, that is the factory name. Now, many of your babies have a wristband, and on the around its right wrist, and there should be probably a 4-digit number on there. That corresponds to what you see here for the baby ID. Now you can change this, and we'll go over that part when we come with the programming the baby for a simulation. But the baby ID, what we have right here, what we see, this baby 2FF1 is the factory name that came with the baby. So now we go to our all baby screen, and if you noticed, all those little buttons at the top, I can't access them. They're uh, they're blank at this moment. They're not active. In order to activate any of those buttons up at the top, you've got to select the baby that you want to program or demonstrate or whatever. Once you do that, now all those little guys up here, they're active, and we can start our demos or program the baby, print your birth certificates, all things like that. I'm going to switch back here to the PowerPoint. Now, the next thing we're going to do is put the baby in a demonstration mode. So for the first time you get the babies, it's a good idea for you to get used to how the baby functions, how to care for the baby. And also, this is a good way to do it in front of the class as well. Do individual care events first, then you can do a sequence if you're comfortable. Always best to practice it yourself first, just so you get used to where to put the ID and how to care for the baby and the different sounds that it makes and the different cries that it makes for each care event. Your students will be able to figure that out during the simulation when they have the babies with them. They'll be able to figure out, oh, this is a burping cry. Oh, this is a diaper change cry. Now in the demonstration, baby will respond to any ID that you put up to it. Any ID at all. Doesn't matter. So you don't even have to program an ID to the baby to run a demonstration. Now, a demonstration, again, baby responds to any ID you put up to it. So a demonstration is not a good way to test, do I have the right ID for the baby? So to do a demonstration, doesn't matter what ID that you use, but the baby also must be unplugged from the charger. If the baby is plugged into the charger and you're running a demonstration, the charging disables the antenna and baby won't respond to the ID until you have unplugged the charger. I'm going to switch back to the control center here. Okay, so to do the demonstration, again, select the baby, make sure we have a green communication indicator in the COMM column, and make sure this is green. The wireless communication adapter at the bottom right corner is green. Green is good. Once we know we have green, we can proceed to demo. Now in the demonstration, this is where we can select all of our care events. Now, if you notice start demo at the top right corner right here, it's not active. And that's because I haven't selected a care event first. Now, you can do, first thing, always do individual care events. So we're gonna select feed here. Now, we recommend that you set that the event duration should be no less than 60 seconds. Reason why is because anything less than that, the baby can time out before you have a chance to actually get to the care event and baby won't respond. So that's why we say 60 seconds, because it gives you enough time to demonstrate to the baby, demonstrate to the class and talk. And it's also a good enough amount of time and that's a decent amount of time to get the point across, see how the care event is done. Now you can increase to as high as 255 seconds, which is roughly around 4.5 minutes, or as low as, you'll see here in a sec, 10 seconds. Now 10 seconds, there's absolutely no way you can really demonstrate the baby a care event in 10 seconds. So that's why I always recommend no less than 60 seconds. And since we're doing only one care event, we don't have to worry about the quiet in between care events. Now, to do your care events, we're going to do the feeding here. Always have your ID handy. Now, when caring for the baby, when baby starts asking for care, you've got to put the ID to the baby first. Now, there are 4 locations on the baby that the ID will be recognized. Doesn't matter where they put one of those 4 locations, but make sure that the ID is about 2 inches or closer. Do not wave the ID around. So like on the front of the baby, it's right around the front right shoulder here, or about an inch below the belly button. Or on the back of the baby, it's above the battery cover between the shoulder blades, or below the battery cover on the butt. Again, when it's crying for care, they've got to get the ID to one of those 4 locations, get it 2 inches or closer. Once they hear the chime, then they know, baby recognizes me as the parent. Now I can give the care event. When in doubt, if the students are kind of struggling to figure out where to put the ID, when in doubt, put it below the cover on the butt. Is that the best location? No, but if you've got the diaper on, you can feel, well, here's the diaper, here's the sensor. Oh, that's where I put it. Bing. And then they can give the baby care. So select your care event. Again, set it for no less than 60 seconds. Click Start Demo. Okay, now that chime is the baby responding to the command from the control center. Now it's starting to cry. Okay, so I'm going to ID the baby. Okay, now I can give the care. Put the bottle to the lips, and baby makes a suckling sound. Now make sure you are properly supporting the head and that you're giving the baby movement, because in a feeding, the baby is motion sensitive, which means if it doesn't sense movement, it's not going to feed. So when the students have the babies, make sure that they're giving the baby movement, because if they're holding the baby still and they're not giving the movement during the feeding, or they put the baby in a car seat and prop the bottle, baby's not going to feed. It's going to stop feeding and start crying until the bottle is back to the lips and they're feeling some movement. We're getting close to the end here. Okay, so the coo signifies that our feeding event is over, and then you can proceed on to another care event. So I'm going to remove the check mark from the feed. We're going to do a burp. Now, when burping the baby, it's just a gentle patting between the shoulder blades. And during the burping, baby makes a constant grunting sound to let you know you're not done. You just got to keep on burping the baby. Now, in a simulation, your care events are going to last anywhere from a couple of minutes to maybe an excess of 30 plus minutes. So it's not uncommon for a student to feed the baby for more than 30 minutes. It's not uncommon for the students to rock the baby for over 40 minutes. It's not uncommon to have back to back to back to back care events. Doesn't matter if it's an easy, medium, or hard schedule. So you could have a situation where a student has a 20-minute burping followed by a 40-minute rocking. I mean, that's a full hour right there of constant movement. That's not uncommon. So just remind the students that even though the longest your demonstration is going to be roughly about, depend upon you, 4.5 minutes, but when they get it home, their care events can go much longer than that. So patience is really what they have to have when they have the baby at home. So your burpings. We're going to demonstrate the burping right now. I've selected burping, start demo. Okay. Chime because it responded to the command from the control center. He's starting to cry. ID the baby. Okay. And now just a gentle patting between the shoulder blades. Now it's going to make that constant little grunting sound to let you know you're not done. You just got to keep on moving the baby. Now, some students say it cried for that whole amount of time. If it's like this, yeah, they sometimes can interpret that as a cry event, but no, that's just baby telling me you're not done, got to keep on moving me. Now, for a burp, it's a soft burp. And if they're in a noisy environment, that burp might be hard to hear. So if they don't hear the grunting sound anymore, that means that the burping event is over with. I've taken baby to trade shows and it's pretty noisy and I'm demonstrating the baby. It's very difficult to hear that little burp sound to let you know that it's been done. Pretty much just got to listen. Is it grunting? If it's not, then okay, my burp event is over with. So we're getting close to the end here. Put up to the microphone. Hopefully you heard that. That was just a soft little burp that lets us know, okay, burp event is over with. And I am free to do another demonstration. Now for a diaper change, make sure that you have a green diaper, a diaper with a green sensor patch or a diaper with a yellow sensor patch. They've got to have one of each color. Don't send a student home with two diapers with the exact same color. They cannot change the diapers if they have a diaper with the exact same color sensor patch on it. So when a diaper change comes around, they've got to take off whatever color diaper that the baby's wearing. The baby that I have here is wearing a green diaper. You've got to take off the green diaper, put up the yellow one, baby will coo, and that way you've changed the diaper. So be a little interesting trying to change the baby. Usually I'm at the office and I have a table in front of me and a camera that I can zoom in and out. So hopefully this will, you can see the diaper change effectively here. So remove the check mark from burp, go to diaper, do a start demo. Okay, now he's gonna start crying. Okay, gonna ID the baby. Okay. Taking off the green one here. Put up the yellow. There we go. Okay, baby cooed. It says, oh, I'm wearing the yellow diaper. My diaper has been changed. So then you're free to proceed on to another care event. And the next one will be a rocking event. So again, select your rock, set it to a minute, click start demo. Okay, baby's gonna start crying here. Okay, I'm gonna ID the baby. Now, if you've noticed, I have put the ID to all 4 different locations, just to give you an example of how the baby responds to all those 4 different spots. So give the baby constant movement during a rocking event. As you can hear it, is making that it's just tell me you're not done. Keep on moving me. We had a old design of RealCare baby that didn't make any sound during a burping or a rocking. So if you had those really lengthy burping or rocking events, students would put it down because they're not hearing anything. They put it down, it starts fussing again, and then they got to pick it up. So just keep giving the movement until you hear the coo. Now your care events, your feedings, your rockings and your diaper change, they all end with a coo, whereas the burping always ends with a soft little burp. So just waiting for the baby to finish here. Okay, there's my coo. I know my care event is over with. And baby, in them, since we're only doing a single event, it has now finished with the, it's not going to proceed on to another one until I select a new care event. Now, after you've had a chance to demonstrate the baby individual care events, and have had a chance to maybe let each student do one at a time, you could do a sequence of events. One tip about doing demonstrating the baby in a class, what we recommend is if you have a large class, maybe demonstrate in have baby no more than 5 babies, and then spread them out throughout the room. Now, reason why we say that is because if the babies are in close proximity together and they're all going off at the same time, it's hard to discern, okay, which baby chimed, which baby cried, which baby is responding to this care event, which baby is responding to that care event. So minimize the amount of confusion. The best way to do that is to, like, no more than 5 babies. Anything more than that, it can get really confusing. But if you want to do more than 5, that's fine. But just to minimize the amount of confusion, have like no more than 5, and then spread the babies out throughout the room. So that way nobody is like right next to each other. Okay, was that my baby, the next person's baby? Or minimize the confusion, spread them out 5 or less. That's the best thing. Now, after you've done your individual care events, you can do a sequence of events. Now, what we recommend, especially if it's your first time, do a preset one. Now, if you notice here, I have, once I click that, we have coo, feed, burp, diaper, cough, and rock. So each event, each of our care events are going to be 60 seconds, and there will be a 30-second break in between each event before it moves on to the next one. Now, it defaults to this order because it goes coo, feed, burp, diaper, cough, rock. So you know what's coming next. And then it's set to play once, which means that once it finishes with rock, it stops. Or you can click stop demo to end the demonstration early. Why we recommend, especially if it's your first time, to do the preset one is because you know what's coming next. It's like, okay, it's a feed. I know it's going to move on to a burp. After my burp, I know it's going to move on to a diaper. If you feel more comfortable with the babies and you've been doing this for a while, maybe you want to do a preset 2. Now, in a preset 2, it's only going to do a feed, a burp, a diaper, and a rock. Each care event is 2 minutes long with a 30-second break in between, and it's random. So you don't know what's coming next. Now, that's more realistic. That's more realistic than the preset 1, but you have more control with the preset 1 because you know what's coming next. Again, minimizing confusion is probably what's very helpful, especially when you're brand new with the babies. And it's also marked to continuous. So it's just going to keep running this loop until you have clicked stop demo. I'm going to do a preset 1 briefly here. I'm not going to do the whole thing, but I'm just going to do a couple of care events. And for the sake of time, I'm going to change the quiet between events to 10 seconds. And I'll just do a couple of care events just so you can see what the preset 1 looks like. So with the preset 1, have your bottle handy, have your ID handy. Now, you don't have to do anything for the coo or the cough. Those are just random sounds that the baby is going to make when it's in a simulation. So not to be alarmed with that. Don't be surprised if the baby's just sitting there and all of a sudden the students hear the baby make a cough. That's completely normal. It's also normal to hear the baby just out of the blue make a coo sound. That's normal as well. Students don't have to do anything to cause that or anything to if they just hear that. It's just random noises that the baby will make. So, okay, click start demo. Oop. There we go. Okay, coo. Okay, now we're gonna have a 10-second break, and then baby will start asking for a feeding event. Okay, gonna ID the baby. Okay, now put the bottle to the lips. So, and again, when doing the feeding, make sure you're giving him some movement. And also, one thing I'll mention too, and I'll explain this when we do like how to interpret a report, is when they're feeding the baby, they just have to rest the bottle against the lips. Don't push the bottle against the lips. If they're pushing the bottle against the lips, it's very common for students to do this. They could push that head back far enough to where it hits a head support. So when they feed the baby, they just have to rest the bottle gently against the lips and give the baby some movement and wait until baby makes the coo sound. There. Okay. So I will stop the demo here. I just wanted to do a few events for you. Now, before I move to the next slide, do anybody have any questions so far about what we've covered for adding the baby or charging or for even running the demonstration? So I am gonna switch to the next slide, but I'll wait a moment here or two for you to put a question into the chat. Or if any of your questions do not get answered today and you have a question that arises, you're also welcome to contact product support, calling us or using the chat, or even sending just an email to productsupport@realityworks.com. Ask your question. We'll be happy to respond to you. There we go. We're going to cover now the different abuses and the different early shutdowns. After this, then we'll program the baby for a simulation. Now, there are 4 different abuses for the baby. The first and most common is a head support failure. That's if they don't support the baby, the baby's head, when they pick it up, it'll fall back, trigger head support. Again, if they're pushing the bottle against the lips, if they pick up the baby too quickly when it's in the car seat or lying down and they don't support the head when they do that, they're almost guaranteed to whammo, head go back. So it's always important that the very first thing they touch before they lift the baby is to put that hand underneath the back of the baby's head, pick it up before they give any of the care events. Now, the head design hasn't changed since 2004. Now, we did have the original RealCare baby, which was from 1999 to early 2004. Now, that head design, if you did not support the head when you picked up the baby, you were guaranteed 100% of the time to get a head support. Now, these babies here, the heads do not fall back as easy as that. And if you do have sensitive head concerns, we are happy to help you over the phone to determine if the head is in specifications. We even have a video online that shows you how to do that as well. Now, how a student, again, can accidentally trigger head support, most common, is with they're pushing the bottle against the lips when they're feeding the baby. So when they feed the baby, just rest the bottle against the lips. Now, a shaken baby, in order for that to happen, the head has to go forward and backward 3 full times within 2 seconds. Forward, backward, forward, backward, forward, backward. That's a pretty hard one to accidentally trigger. I have heard of instances where the baby is in a car seat, the student has to slam on the gas, baby, they didn't secure it into the car seat, and now the baby goes tumbling out of the car seat and bounces around in the car. Or I've heard of some circumstances where the student, they've got their arms full of stuff and they accidentally drop the baby, but it doesn't hit the floor and they kind of fumble with it, but they're not supporting the head and the baby jostles, things like that. So that's one way, some ways that a student could accidentally trigger a shaken baby. Otherwise, a shaken baby is something that's pretty difficult to accidentally trigger, unlike like with the head support if you're accidentally pushing the bottle against the lips. Now, a wrong position is the baby face down or upside down. Now, a way that a student could accidentally trigger a wrong position is, let's say it's in the middle of the night and they're doing a burping or a rocking and they're lying flat on their bed or they're in a recliner and they're way too far back. Care event is over with. If they do not get themselves in an upright position after that care event is over with, baby is going to sense that it's face down and it's going to fuss and cry until the student gets in a wrong position, in an upright position. So again, if the student is in a reclined position when they're caring for the baby, once that care event is over with, they've got to get themselves in an upright position or they could accidentally trigger a wrong position. Now, a rough handling is like hitting, like a blow to the body, hitting, kicking, dropping, some type of blow to the body. One common way that students accidentally trigger a rough handling event is if they are burping the baby too hard. Your rough handling sensor is right here near the butt. If they are burping the baby and they are patting the baby too hard, especially on the butt, they could accidentally trigger a rough handle event. So when they're burping the baby, it's just a gentle patting between the shoulder blades. Now, if they've got a 20-minute burping or rocking, it doesn't matter how fast or how slow they go. Patting the baby faster is not going to get that care event to get done faster. Patting the baby faster and faster is you run the risk of accidentally rough handling the baby. So it's when it's a burping event or rocking event, gentle patting between the shoulder blades, and you just got to wait it out. So again, rough handling sensor is right here near the baby's butt. And if they are patting the baby too hard right on the butt, they could accidentally trigger a rough handle event. Now, there are 4 ways that a baby can turn off early during a simulation. Now, I had mentioned that the button that's above the red light is used to add the baby to the control center. It can also be used to turn the baby off early as an emergency shutdown. Now, to do an emergency shutdown, it's manual. There's no other way that this baby can do an emergency shutdown. There's that button that's above the red light. You have to hold that button down for 6 continuous chimes. After the 6th chime, you've got to release, baby coos, and then it's off. Don't just keep holding it in, because if you just hold it in, it's not going to coo. It's just going to keep chiming and chiming and chiming and chiming and chiming. It's got to be 6 chimes, release. Baby coos, it's over with. If they release at the 5th or the 7th chime, they got to do it all over again. Now, if a student comes in and you see on the report, because it will say on the report, it'll have that early shutdown indicator on the report. So if you see emergency shutdown on the report, you didn't give authorization to do an emergency shutdown. So authorization, like, there was a family emergency, student got sick and they really can't continue on with the baby. That's where you can instruct them to do the emergency shutdown. But if you didn't instruct them, you didn't authorize an emergency shutdown, and you see it on the report, it didn't happen on its own. It is manual. They or someone had to have held that button down for 6 continuous chimes. There is no other way for an emergency shutdown to occur. It does not phantom happen. So if you see emergency shutdown and you didn't authorize it, you didn't instruct them how to do it, they figured out how to do it on their own. Then there's the battery shutdown. Now, a battery shutdown can occur when the babies, their batteries get low enough and it can't resume the simulation. It'll record the information right up to the point where the batteries had shut down. One thing I will mention, and this I see every single fall, or when babies have sat idle for many months and now you're going to use them for the very first time. It's not uncommon for any rechargeable battery to be charged fully, show a full charge, but on that initial use, that first time out, batteries crash during the simulation. That's not uncommon, because what happens is during that dormancy period, the batteries may get the dormancy period can weaken the batteries temporarily. So they'll show the full charge, but they're not strong enough to hold that charge for that first initial use. So if you send the babies home, it's the first time after a number of months, you get a battery shutdown. That's not uncommon. And that's probably because the battery strength hasn't been built up enough yet. The good news is that charging it again for the next simulation almost always fixes the problem. If you get like 2 battery shutdowns in a row, it's time to contact product support. So if you're concerned about, okay, it's babies have been sitting for a few months now, I don't want a baby to do a battery shutdown for a simulation. Well, what you want to do is charge it fully. Maybe have a couple of students take the babies home for a trial run. Give them some extra credit. And if you don't get a battery shutdown, cool. You don't have to worry about it. If they do have a battery shutdown, then it's like, okay, I just got to charge it fully for the next simulation. That should take care of it. If you get 2 battery shutdowns in a row, then it's time to contact product support, because there's a few other things that we can try with you over the phone to see if we can improve the battery life of the babies. There's also a neglect shutdown. This occurs when the baby has been ignored for 12 continuous hours. That's not 12 continuous care events. It's 12 continuous hours. If the baby does not respond to an ID within 12 continuous hours, it's going to shut itself off. So if the ID was improperly programmed, or the student accidentally took the wrong ID home with them, or the wrong ID was given to them, they're not going to have a crying baby all weekend long. So if baby doesn't respond to an ID within 12 continuous hours, it will just shut itself off. You can do the neglect shutdown as an alternate to the emergency shutdown. Maybe you don't want the students to do the emergency shutdown, or the student is just too frazzled and they just can't seem to get it right. Just tell the student, okay, wrap the baby in a wrap the baby in a blanket and then put it in a closet and just ignore it. I'll give you points right up to the point where you put the baby away. Because as long as they don't get the ID up to the baby within 12 continuous hours, it will shut itself off. Then there is the abuse shutdown. That occurs if the baby has been mishandled 24 times. That's your head supports, that's your shaken babies, and that's your rough handlings. Wrong positions are not counted towards an abuse shutdown. They can have 100 wrong positions. The baby's not going to turn off. But it's 24 of the rough handlings, shaken baby, or head supports, a combination of all 3 or all of one. Once it hits 24, it's done. Doesn't matter if the simulation's running for 5 minutes or for a week. Once you have 24 mishandle events, that'll turn the baby off. So if you see abuse shutdown on the report, that means the baby had been mishandled 24 times. So now that we've covered the demonstration and the different abuses and the different early shutdown modes, now here's the big one, and that's programming the baby for a simulation. This is where you'll set the ID. This is where you'll set the starting and stop time, schedule order, and the quiet times. I'm gonna switch screen here real quick here. Go to the control center. If I can find that on my computer here. Okay, so you should see the control center software right now. Let me know if anybody is not seeing the control center. Because if you're not seeing it, that means I do not have the right screen share up, and I would apologize to that. So to program the baby for a simulation, go to your all baby screen or your available, doesn't matter. Select your baby, but again, make sure you've got a green communication indicator under the COMM column, and our little wireless communication device adapter icon at the bottom right corner is also green. They've got to be green before you can proceed to program the babies. Once you have that, go to Program Baby. And this is where we set up the simulation. Now, again, this baby has been used for demonstrations and simulations before. That's why there's an ID already assigned here under ID 1. The first time you set the babies up, there will not be one. You'll need to program that. And it doesn't matter which ID that you use. You can always change it, for the next simulation or whatever. But once you program that ID to the baby and you keep that ID and that baby together, you're not going to have to do that step again. So first thing we have is class. And right now it's defaulting to the no class. Now you can, again, you can create as many class folders as you want. So to create a new class folder, we select the drop down here and we go to new class and then enter in the name for a new folder. You could call it, spring 2020, parent development, period 1, whatever you like. Here we'll call it actually period 2. Click OK. Now, when the simulation is over with, when the baby comes back into the room and the simulation is over with, that's when the data will be retrieved. And you'll see here now, we've got a new class folder. Right now it says 0, and it will remain 0 until the simulation is over with and the data has been retrieved. After that, you can put in the student name if you wish. So you can always leave that blank, or if you know the student who's going to take it out, you can put the name in there. So let's say this is going to be Jessica Bruce. And I'll just show you the ID, how to program an ID. So if it's blank here, or you need to put in a new ID, you click this little pencil next to ID 1. And here's a sample ID. And to type in the ID, put that in this little window right in the corner here, and it uses the numbers 0 through 9 and the letters A through F. So if you see a 0 there, it's the number 0 and not the letter O. So the ID that I'm holding actually says 307FD. Don't worry about putting caps in. Once you click OK, it automatically goes to capitals. Baby only comes with one ID. You can order additional IDs if you want, because you can program here where it says ID 2, a second ID to allow someone else to care for that baby. So let's say you're sending it out in a team or something, 2 people taking care of the one baby, or if you want to give the student an option for a babysitter. So let's say the student is in the shower, they're maybe at work and you want to allow someone to care for the baby, you can, at your discretion, program in a second ID if you want. Then here, where it says baby and it's blank, this is what they want to call the baby for the simulation. That's entirely up to you. You don't have to put one in there. And it's only just for that simulation. And it's not a permanent name. It's just the name the student wants to give the baby for that simulation. Maybe they want to call it Jacob Bruce. Now to the right of that, we have our baby ID and our gender. Now, the baby ID, you can keep it to the factory name that it came with, or you could put in whatever is easiest for you to keep track of your babies. Maybe you have 5 babies and this is the first baby on the list. Maybe you want to call it baby 1. Or let's say you have different genders and ethnicities, and let's say this is the only Hispanic female that you have. Maybe you want to change it to HF, as in Hispanic female. Again, it doesn't matter what you have in the baby ID. That's like the permanent name for the baby, and you want to put in there whatever is easiest for you to keep track of the baby. So if it's the first baby on the list and you call it baby 1, maybe you want to write baby 1 on the battery cover. Don't put it on the vinyl itself, but put it on the battery cover. So that way, again, keep baby ID to whatever is easiest for you to keep track of the baby. Here, I'm just going to keep it. I'm just going to rename it HF or Hispanic female, so I know that, let's say I have multiple babies and this is the only Hispanic female in my group. That's what I'm going to give it a call. Then you set your starting day and hour and your stopping day and hour. Now, the babies, they do not have an internal clock. They have no clue what time it is. Just sitting there right now, this baby has no concept of time whatsoever. It takes the time from your computer. So if the date and time in your computer is accurate, that will relay the proper time into the babies. Now, the only times that the baby does not adjust are weekends for like when daylight savings time ends or begins, where we drop ahead or we fall back. Uh, as long as your computer adjusts for that weekend, the next time you program the babies, they'll be on proper time. So you may have to adjust your starting and stop time just for that particular weekend to accommodate for the time change. After that, as long as your computer had adjusted to the new time change, babies will be on the proper time the next time you program the babies for a simulation. So again, remember, as long as the date and time in your computer is accurate, that'll be relayed into the babies. So you can set the babies up as far as a week in advance. You could even set it up immediately. It only starts at the top of the hour. Now, if I wanted the baby to start right now, I would just keep the start time at 11 a.m. But if I want the baby to start in the future, it's always at the top of the hour. You can't set it for like, I want baby to turn on at 6:30 at night. You can't do that. It's either you've got to set it for 6 p.m. or you got to set it for 7 p.m. So let's say we're setting the simulation to start up this Friday at 4 o'clock. Make sure we have it at 4 p.m. And we want it to stop on Monday at 6 a.m. Okay, so now pay attention to that green box that's right underneath our starting and stop time, because that tells us how many days, hours, and minutes before it starts and how many days, hours, and minutes the simulation is going to run. Now we have here where it says schedule order, and we have 5 different drop downs. You're probably wondering, what do these numbers mean? Now, in your curriculum materials and even on our website, you have here a care schedule table. I will bring that up real quick here. Now, the babies are pre-programmed with 15 different care schedules, and they're broken up into 5 easies and 5 mediums and 5 hards. So what we did back in the late 90s when we were developing the RealCare baby, we had 15 mothers record everything their real child, had done in a 24-hour period. We took those diaries and we program them into the babies. So somewhere on this planet, there are 15 20-year-olds whose behaviors as an infant are programmed into these babies. Now you can look at the chart and you can see how much it doesn't tell you what the baby needs, when it needs it, or for how long, but the more color you see in any specific hour, it is going to tell you how much you're going to be spending most of that hour caring for the baby. So for example, schedule number 5, if you'll notice on schedule number 5, which is the hardest schedule, that the 11 a.m. hour is almost completely colored. So that hour is pretty much spent in the entire 11 a.m. hour on schedule number 5 is almost constant care events. Now, if you look at schedule number 9, you'll see that at 3 in the morning, half of that hour is in color, because they're going to spend half of the 3 o'clock hour, 3 a.m. hour, caring for the baby. Now you can do this. You can look at this chart. You know your students. You can use this to discern, okay, I've got a special needs student here and I want to give them, then they really want to take the baby out. So you can look at this chart to determine, what's going to be best suited for them. Schedules number 11 or 12 are the easiest of the schedules. If you have an at-risk student who's really trying to actively get pregnant, maybe you want to scare them and give them schedule number 5. You can use this chart here to determine how much care, what's best suited for your students. I'm going to switch back to the control center here. So right now we have It always assigns 5, regardless of how long the simulation is going to run. It always assigns 5. So if you're only doing a 3-day simulation, it's not going to get to the other schedules. It switches over to a new schedule at 6 a.m. the following morning. So if I don't make any changes to the schedule, on Friday at 4 p.m., it's going to start schedule number 11. And then at 6 a.m. on Sunday, it's going to switch over to schedule number 13. And then 6 a.m. on Sunday, it's going to switch over to number 9. Now, you can choose, the schedules that you want to use yourself, or you could go to Schedule Helper and you can do an easy mix. So it takes the 5 easy schedules, it shuffles them up. Same thing with a medium mix, takes the 5 different medium schedules and shuffles them up. This way, nobody is using the same schedule, but they're all on medium. Or if you click random, it takes all 15 schedules and shuffles them up. So really, it's a mix of easy, medium, and hard. It doesn't matter. And then you'll see the different numbers along where it says easy mix. It tells you 9, 11, 12, 13, 15. You can use that chart to say, oh, okay, this is how much activity is going to be going on. Again, if you're starting off, maybe you want to give everybody the exact same schedule. So that way everyone's on the same playing field. No one has a more active baby than another one. Maybe you'll find that easier to, grade the scores and everything. If you want to do that, that's perfectly fine. So let's say you look at the chart and you're like, you know what, I'm going to do schedule 9 every day for everybody. So you can do the drop downs, select the schedules that you want to use. Or again, just go to Schedule Helper, choose the mix that you want to use, click OK, and then your schedule order is set. Now you see here where it says quiet times. Now the quiet times are completely at your discretion. You do not have to program in a quiet time. Let's say the student has an event that you feel warrants one. Let's say there is a wedding going on, and you obviously don't want the baby to be going off during mid-ceremony. You can program in a quiet time. If set properly, the baby will not ask for any care. However, the baby will cry if it's mishandled. So just because the baby is in a quiet mode does not absolve the student from being responsible. They still have to make sure it's being treated properly. So any head supports, rough handling, shaking babies, wrong position will cause the baby to cry during a quiet time. So if you're going to do a quiet time and you're going to do it on, let's say it's going to be Saturday, ceremony starts at 1 o'clock, but you probably want baby to be quiet before then, set it for 12 noon. And then you can set the duration anywhere from 1 hour up to 12 hours. You only get 3 quiet times. There's no way you can get more than that. So if you need more quiet times, you're probably going to have to reprogram the baby. So you run the simulation, get the 3 quiet times. After that, then you're going to have to program it again for additional quiet times. So it's just 3, that's it. Anywhere from 1 hour up to 12 hours per quiet time. So let's say you're like, okay, wedding, 5 hours. Okay, and then check this box right here, because it'll tell you, if you've set it properly, it'll show you the proper number of hours that the baby is in the quiet time. So let's say you put in a wrong date here. We accidentally put in Saturday, May 30th at noon for 5 hours. You'll notice on the right here, nothing has changed. And that's because I accidentally put in the wrong starting date for a quiet time. So, and also make sure you have the right AMs and PMs set too. All right, so now that you've got your starting, your baby, your class period, student, the ID, the starting and stop time, schedule, order, quiet times, if any, now you've got to click done. And then you'll get this little pop-up saying you need to press send to babies to send your programming instructions to the babies. Click I got it, or mark this right here that says do not remind me for 120 days. So we click I got it, because reason why, if you do not click send to babies, this baby does not get programmed. That's a very common mistake instructors make, is that they don't click the send to babies. Now, again, the communication range between the babies and the control center is only 20 feet. So the baby has to be in the room with you in order to program it. If the babies are at home, you can't program the baby. They have to be brought back to you. The babies in the control center only use a wireless radio frequency. We're not hooked up to Wi-Fi or cell towers or things like that. So you don't need the internet to program the babies. Uh, Again, if the baby is in the room with you and you've got a green communication indicator in the COMM column and it's green at the bottom right corner, click send to babies. Baby's going to chime. Okay, status says pending. Wait for the baby to change to a status of ready. Okay, it says ready. Good. Give the student the baby, give them their accessories and everything, put the wristband on them, and now they can go. Once the baby is programmed with the control center, baby no longer needs the control center to program. Now that they're out of the room, you are free to close the control center and shut down your computer. Baby will still be operating just fine. So again, make sure the baby is in the room with you, that it has chimed, shows a status of ready. Once you see that, you're good. Students can now leave with the babies, and you are free to close the control center, unplug the X stick, and once the babies are brought back to you, that's when you're going to want to make sure the X stick is plugged in, turn on the control center, then you can get the reports. Now, when the babies have been returned to you, that's about the time that you'll want to turn the babies off. So I'm going to turn this baby off early here. So if they have a stop time of 6 a.m., 6 a.m. rolls around, baby turns off. And then once it comes within range of the control center, it'll automatically send its report into the control center and into that report folder that you created. Otherwise, when the baby's been brought back, if you click stop, the baby will chime, changes to a status of report due. Now, once it shows a status of either report okay or available, that means the report has been retrieved. And then you've got to check that class folder. If you click get report and it shows report okay, the report doesn't automatically pop up on the screen. You've got to go to the class folder that you assigned to look at that report. Ah, there it is. Now you can select it and you can view it. You can print it. To view it, you just click view and you'll see the report here. It'll give you all the information as to how well the student had performed, and even that you've got your second page here, which brings us to the next part of the presentation. There we go. How to interpret the report, because there is more to the report than just the score. Here we have a report. It shows a performance overview of 76%. Now, in most grading scales, what is that, a solid C right there? Now, it doesn't matter if the student is the valedictorian or they're the most conscientious student that you've ever encountered in your life. Anybody can have a bad night. Anybody can have a bad experience. Just because they have a low score does not mean that they were treating the baby inappropriately. What you want to do is break it down. Look at the report, see what it's really telling you, and then you can use your discretion to determine what grade do they really deserve, because even though it's low, I see they did a really good job with it. They were trying. There were just a few things that went up against them. So first thing, look at the left hand of the control center where it says proper care. This is where you want to begin when you are looking, when you're trying to break down the report. So this side shows you how the student actually performed with the baby. How properly did they care for it? So we see here, Rock, there's a 15/15. That means that there were 15 requested care events, and the baby and the student responded to all 15 events. So, okay, they got 100%. For diaper, it shows 24 out of 25. So the baby requested 25 feeding events. The student properly responded to 24 of them. Basic math shows us that of those care events, they responded to 96% of all diaper events. Burp events, there were 26 of them. Student properly responded to 25 of them. And then for feeding, there were 37 requested feeding events. The student properly responded to 33 of them for 89%. So overall, there were 103 requested care events. The student properly responded to 97 of them for a proper care percentage of 94%. Whew, that's good. Okay, so that tells me our student was, for proper care wise, they were great. That's A right there. That's exactly what we're looking for. Now, next thing, look underneath that performance overview box. It says ID1 was used 109 times. And if you assign the second ID, it'll tell you how many times the second ID was used. This is really important here, because if you ever have a student who said, my ID wasn't working at all, or wasn't working very well, look at this, because look at the total number of times the ID was used, right? That means how many times that the baby recognized the ID, and compare that to the total number of requested care events. So let's say this student told me it wasn't responding to the ID very well. Okay, well, this baby only requested 103 care events, but the ID was recognized 109 times. We have a surplus of IDs. So that tells me, one, the ID is working just fine. And two, it tells me I've got an attentive student here. So the baby's crying for something. They're right on top of it, trying to take care of it. So baby responds to an ID, whether it's crying for a care event, a fussy event, or a mishandle event. We have a surplus of 6 IDs here. So those 6 IDs come from either mishandle events, except for the wrong positions. So it'll respond to the ID for your head support, shaken babies, rough handling, or fussy events. Now, fussy events do not show up on the report. So I know here that of my 109 times the baby recognized the ID, that means 103 of them were for the care events, 6 were surplus due to the mishandle events or fussy events. Okay, I've got an attentive student. ID is working just fine. Baby's crying for something. They're trying to take care of it as best they can. Now look at the right-hand side. Now this side here, this is the mishandle events. This takes the points off of the left-hand side. Now the control center defaults to 15 points for every shaken baby event. If you notice right above at the top right corner of this performance overview box where it says edit rubric, that's where you can increase or decrease the points for every mishandle event. So some instructors are like, you know what, shaken baby, unforgivable. They take the max points. The most you can take off is 99 points. You can go as low as 0. Maybe you're like, so again, 15 points off for every shaken baby event. Your head supports, wrong position, rough handling, they default to 3 points. So here we see on the report there were 5 head support events. 5 times 3, 15. There was 1 wrong position, 3 points. So there are a total of 6 mishandle events for a total of 18 points taken off of the left-hand side. That's where we get the 76% performance overview. Okay, so now we know how we got the score, but we know on the left-hand side that we had an attentive student. They're really trying here. So how did we get to this score here? That's where you kind of want to break things down. So look at the details here. So the first thing we have, it tells us when the simulation started. And then at 5 o'clock, there was a head support. And then at 7:39, there was a head support. It's the first night. Maybe they were handing the baby around, or they're just not as comfortable with the baby as they figure, and they're just not supporting the head as they mean to. And they're not as careful, or maybe they gave it to a sibling or to somebody who didn't go to the class and they accidentally let the head go back. So head went back. We know that they were attentive because of the number of times that the ID was used. So they heard the baby cry, got the ID to it, but because it was a head support event, there was nothing to care for. Now, if we notice at 9:45, we have a missed feeding, and at 9:45, we have a head support. Now, if the baby is in a care event and the student were to mishandle the baby, that mishandle event negates the care event. So they get a double dip. So here, The reason why we have a 9:45 missed feeding event is because there was a head support event at that same time. So if the student is responding to the baby and they accidentally pick up the baby too quickly, whammo, head goes back. That's where we see the double dip. That feeding event would not have been missed if the head did not go back. So again, this is where you use your discretion as to how you want to grade that. Now, the next thing we have here is at 3:13 in the morning, we have a missed diaper. And at 3:19 in the morning, we have a missed feeding event. When the baby starts crying for care, the student has 2 minutes in which to get their ID to the baby. If they get it within the 2 minutes, then they have an additional 2 minutes to figure out what the baby needs. If they're late within any of those times, it will be marked as a missed. It'll still allow them to complete the event, but it's missed. So when in truth, really here, they were late. Now, I am not shocked of any missed care event between the hours of 1 a.m. and 5 a.m., maybe up to 6. That's up to you. I'm not shocked of any missed care event during that time because who knows, you might have a student who's a pretty heavy sleeper. That baby could have been crying for a full 3 minutes before the student actually woke up and took care of the care event. Or like with this diaper event, maybe just because it was so late, they're so tired, they can't find the diaper bag and they're not awake enough to change the diaper event in that 2-minute time frame. We know they were, due to the number of times the ID was recognized, that they were there. It just took them too long to either wake up or clear their head enough to figure out what the baby needed. So that's where you can discern, okay, it was really late at night. Student probably wasn't really awake or took too long to wake up from the crying. And then at 2:19, we have a wrong position, 2:19 p.m. So I don't know, maybe the student was tired and they were lying back. Baby was in the care event. Care event was over with, but they didn't get themselves in an upright position in enough time. So that's why we got the wrong position. That's just the possibility right there. I'm just kind of giving you some scenarios on how it could have happened. 3:48, missed feeding event. 3:49, head support. Okay, that head support at 3:49 is what canceled that 3:48 missed feeding event. 4:18, we have a missed feeding. 4:19, we have a head support. Another double dip right there. And then at 5:54, missed burp. Maybe the student was in the bathroom. Baby started to cry. And it took them longer than the 2 minutes to get to the baby in order to, took them longer than the 2 minutes to get to the baby to get that care event taken care of. So here you can use your discretion as how you want to grade the report. But if you also notice that we have about 3 missed feeding events that all coincide with a head support event. No other care event has been missed due to a head support event. And of all of our missed care events, they didn't miss any rocks. They missed 1 diaper. They missed 1 burp, but they missed 4 feedings. And of those 4 feedings, 3 of them were due to a head support event. I can almost guarantee you that this student was accidentally pushing the bottle against the lips when they were feeding the baby. That just means they weren't as careful when they were caring for the baby. Again, they just had to rest the bottle against the lips. So if I'm seeing misfeed, head support, misfeed, head support, misfeed, head support on a report, but there's no other, head support with miscare event, that just tells me, okay, you're feeding the baby, but you're accidentally pushing the bottle against the lips. So at this point, it's really entirely up to you how you feel that you want to grade it. But what I see here, I've got an attentive student. They're definitely doing the best they can. A good portion of those miscare events was because they were pushing the bottle against the lips. You can adjust the score how you feel appropriate. If you notice on the right-hand side where it says in the mishandle events, where it says edit other, you can increase or decrease the points for this report as you feel appropriate. Now on the next, you get a second page. Oop, come on. There we go. Okay. There we are. The second page is your clothing and temperature report. The baby, it records the ambient temperature. It's not going to cry or deduct points if the baby's too hot or too cold. It records the articles of clothing that the baby is wearing. It's not going to cry or deduct points if it's not sensing clothing or if it's not wearing the right clothing. It records the amount of time that's in the car seat. The baby is not going to cry or deduct points for how long it's been in the car seat. You, as the instructor, will set the expectation as to how often you feel the clothing should be changed. There isn't a set schedule as to when you need to change the clothing or for how often or for what. Um, Again, you as the instructor are going to set the expectation. You could say, okay, you know, this ducky sleeper, I expect to see the ducky sleeper at night. And you can see on the report if the baby was wearing the ducky sleeper at the time that you feel is appropriate. You could also say, unless if it's in the summertime and it's really hot out, maybe that bodysuit is appropriate, or maybe no clothing except for the diaper because it's so hot out. Or in the wintertime, you probably expect to see, the outerwear if you have it, or the outfit. So maybe you're also one of those like, okay, at no point on the simulation do I want to see no clothing at all on the baby. So here you can look at the report to see just how responsible the student was, making sure that the baby was clothed appropriately for the environment that they're in. And then you have the car seat report, which will tell you the amount of time that the baby was in the car seat, as opposed to being in the student's arms. So if you notice on day 2 on this report here, is that the baby was in the car seat of 20 hours out of 24 hours. Well, that tells me that the baby was in the car seat a lot, as opposed to being in the student's arms. And if I look at the report here, and I'm seeing all these breaks and everything, that tells me that the student probably only took the baby out of the car seat when it needed care. So baby's in the car seat, they hear the baby cry for care. Okay, I take it out, I ID it, I care for it, care event's over with, I put it back. That's up to you if you feel that was taking it seriously or not. If you see that there are no breaks in it and the baby is just blue all the way across, and baby showing that it was in the car seat 23 hours out of 24 hours, well, that tells me that the student figured out, okay, I keep the baby in the car seat, baby cries for care, I ID it, and it's a feeding, I just put the bottle against the lips and then I pump the car seat with my foot to simulate the movement. Same thing with the burping. So, okay, baby's crying for a care event. ID it, it's the burping. I just pump the car seat with my foot. I don't have to pick the baby up. That way I'm not going to get any head supports. Baby senses the movement in the car seat. And then care event's over with. I wait for the next one. Again, you will use that as your discretion as to how you feel you want to adjust their grade. So again, you set the expectation as to how often they should have their clothing changed, how often it should be in the car seat, and looking at the report, you can determine, okay, is this baby clothed for the environment that it's in? So it's a good talking point with the students. So you're saying, hey, you've got a 6-hour period where the baby's only wearing the diaper and it was 45 degrees outside, even in it's a winter time. You probably don't want the baby only wearing a diaper during the winter time. So again, this is at your discretion. Now, as we wrap up here, we have the common operating questions. Now, these are questions that your students are going to ask you, some of which we've already covered here. So we will kind of do a little repeat of some of the things we've already covered. Now, one of the main questions you get is, how long will the baby cry? Well, I mentioned any of your care events are going to last anywhere from a few minutes to an excess of 30 plus minutes. Doesn't mean that the baby's going to cry that long. Just expect that you could care for the baby for anywhere from a couple of minutes to an excess of 30 plus minutes. Now, if the baby is crying for a fussy event, that's 3 minutes of crying that they can't do anything with. 3 minutes right there. Now, if the baby's crying for a care event, they've got the 2 minutes, again, to figure out what the baby needs. And then they have an additional 2 minutes to figure out what the baby needs. Get their ID to the baby and then figure out what the baby needs. Once they're in the care event, it'll start making the sound indicating you're caring for the baby. Now, let's say there's a situation where they cannot care for an event. So let's say they were at a friend's house and they left the bottle at their friend's house. They get home, baby needs a feeding. They go through the diaper bag and they find out, shoot, I left the bottle at my friend's house. Baby is now crying for a care event that they cannot complete. Uh, the longest a baby will cry for a care event that the student cannot complete is 6 minutes. And then it will just, after the 6 minutes, it'll stop crying and just resume the schedule until the next 7 minutes. And so until the student finds that bottle again, anytime that the baby is crying for an event that they cannot care for, it will be 6 minutes per care event. Now, if they let the head go back or they rough handle the baby, if it's a mishandle event, the longest the baby will cry for a mishandle event is 1 minute, as long as the student doesn't mishandle it again. So if the student let the head go back, now it's crying for 1 minute. As long as they don't let that head go back again, 1 minute is up, it'll stop crying. So again, 3 minutes for every mishandle event. 6 minutes for an event that they cannot care for. So again, if they misplace the bottle and they can't find it, they're not going to have to listen to the baby scream for a half hour. It'll only be 6 minutes. For a mishandle event, it's 1 minute per mishandle event, as long as they don't do it again. You're going to hear things like baby has made strange sounds. That's not uncommon. That goes all the way back to the 1990s with our, older models. A baby can make strange sounds, and especially in the presence of a cell phone or in the presence of some other electrical devices. Really what it typically is feedback, similar to what happens when you get a microphone close to a speaker. You'll hear this, discharge sound. So static noises, warbling noises, poppings, strange occurrences, that's not uncommon. If it's something that never ever goes away and it's constantly making that sound, then you're going to want to contact product support. But if it's like every once in a while you hear a strange sound, that's nothing to be worried about. Students can certainly use their cell phone around the baby. It's not going to interfere with it's just feedback. It's not going to interfere with the report. It's not going to cause them to mishandle the baby or the baby to malfunction. Again, it's perfectly fine to use your cell phone around a baby. Just don't be surprised if it makes strange noises. Communication problems. That's quite a branch right there of different problems that can occur. Now, again, babies do not need the internet to communicate. It does not use Wi-Fi, but Wi-Fi can interfere with the babies. So if you have communication issues with the babies not, communicating with the babies, or commands that are dropping out, if they haven't resolved themselves in about 3 minutes, it's time to contact product support, because there's a number of things that we can do with you over the phone to help resolve communication issues, because there's a number of different things. You might have, again, it could be Wi-Fi interference. You could have some third-party software on your computer that's interfering with the babies. There's a lot out there that we know of that we can help disable that will clear the communication channels. So again, if you have communication issues that have not resolved itself within about 3 minutes, you still got a baby that's in report due and it's in the room with you and you've got all these commands pending, time to contact product support. There's a few things we'll do with you over the phone. Do I need to have the control center on at all times? No, you don't. Only when you need to do something with the babies is when you have to have the control center on. Like I had said earlier, once you've programmed the baby for a simulation, it is completely free and independent of the control center to function. You are now safe to close the control center and let the students leave with the baby. So again, make sure the babies had been programmed from your control center before they leave the room, because your communication range is only 20 feet. So if you've got to do something with the baby and they're out of range, the baby's got to come back to you. Any latex? No, there's no latex. I mentioned earlier in there about the bottles and the clothing and the vinyl itself. There is no latex. So if there's a latex concern, the babies do not have any latex for those who have latex allergies. Now, will the baby affect pacemakers, insulin pumps, other mechanical, medical devices like that? No, they are FCC approved to not interfere with any of those devices. Now, if there is a concern, always fall back to whatever their doctor says. So if their doctor is like, I'm not very comfortable about that, no, I don't want them to go out with the baby. Just go to whatever the doctor says. But they are FCC approved. So if someone has a concern about magnets, yes, there is a magnet. You've got a magnet in the bottle, but there's also a small magnet in the speaker. It's a low Gauss, so it's not a very strong magnet. So, but you might have a doctor that says, "Ooh, magnet. I don't care. No magnets. Don't go home with it." Go by what the doctor says. But again, they are FCC approved to not interfere, but always just defer to what the doctor says. Cleaning suggestions. You're probably wondering about, I've already mentioned earlier about how to clean the clothing, cold, gentle cycle, line dry, or put in the dryer for air fluff or low, but the vinyl can also be cleaned. Now, we get this question a lot, especially with the COVID virus and the best ways to disinfect the babies. What you'll want to do is get a disinfectant wipe that has a minimum 60% alcohol concentration, or rubbing alcohol that has a 60%. Most disinfectant wipes that you find out there are really like 70, 75%. So like your Lysol disinfectant cleaners, as long as it doesn't have a bleach, you're fine. So if you want to disinfect the baby, remove all the clothing and then wipe the baby down with the disinfectant wipe, head to toe, or get a rubbing alcohol, put it on a cloth and rub it head to toe, and then let the baby air dry. Now, usually that's around just a couple minutes, but if you want to be on the safe side and you'll just let it sit for like 30 minutes, nobody touching it, just let it air dry, and then you can put it in the plastic bag and then put it away until you use it the next time. But that's the best way to disinfect the baby. A disinfectant cleaner, the Lysol wipes or rubbing alcohol, again, it's got to have an alcohol content of 60% or higher, because that will kill 99.99% of all germs. And then let it air dry. Half hour is good. Now for cleaning dirt and grime and just other smudges, things like that, well, this cleaning suggestion is on our website. In the product support for RealCare and Control Center, you'll find that as well. But Mr. Clean Magic erasers work really well. That's what we use at the office. The Goop hand cleaner, the Goo Gone, something that might have that citrusy smell with pumice and that little grit. Use like a green kitchen scrubby, and you can scrub away the little grit in the scrubby acts as an exfoliant, and it just helps to wipe away at the dirt and grime and everything. And then you can take a damp little towel and wipe it down. Don't expose the baby, don't submerge the baby to water or anything, but just the green kitchen scrubby, the Goop hand cleaner, Mr. Clean Magic eraser, that's a good way to just clean up regular dirt and grime. Now if you have ink or dye, that is very, very difficult to remove from any vinyl product because of the porous nature of it. So if you do get ink or dye, really we haven't found a product out there that can effectively remove it from vinyl, but our best recommendation is to get an acne cleaner that has 10% benzoyl peroxide, dab the cream on the stained area, and then leave the baby exposed to a windowsill. Just so it's exposed to daylight. Put it in a windowsill so it's exposed to daylight. Doesn't have to be direct sunlight, just daylight is enough. Keep it there for a couple of days, wipe away at the stained area. If the stain is still there, try another application. If it's like a limb, like on the legs or the arms, you can always buy replacement limbs. But if it's on the face and it's really obscene or something, that would have to come in for a head replacement. Next are sensitive head concerns. So if you are concerned that the baby's head is too loose, there is a test that you can run. I don't have time to go through it here, but there's actually a video on our website, and we are happy to email you the instructions or do it with you over the phone, that you can test to see if the baby's head is within specifications. Now, the babies are designed that the baby can be lying in a lying down position, that if picked up from the shoulders, that if done gently, should not trigger a head support. So if you're to run the test with the baby and you're doing like a preset one demo, when you hear the baby cry for care, gently lift up the baby from the shoulder, pick it up to you, give the ID, and then give the care. If you're able to pick up the baby without triggering a head support, then the head is definitely within specifications. So we have a quick question here. We run on a 4-day week, so the baby will go home on Thursday afternoon until we have class on Monday. Is a 40% battery charge enough for the entire weekend, or does the charger need to go home with the student? Okay, so you'll want to plug the baby into the charger on Wednesday night, let the baby charge up all night long, and unplug the baby on uh, Thursday morning, or actually better yet, when they pick up the baby and leave with it. You may be fine just getting it through to Monday, but if there is a concern, because really the battery life lasts roughly around 3.5 days, what you could do is have them plug in, send home the charger with the baby, and then charge it up on like Saturday night or Sunday. That is perfectly fine to do. Just remind the student they owe you $60 if they do not return the charger. Now, finally, where to access support if needed, because there's more than just a phone number to call us. Again, we have this link here will take you to our touchy mouse there. Okay, so we have the self-help support site. This will take you to the RealCare Control Center and RealCare Baby product support site, where we have the different videos and tutorials and documentation to help you. It's like, oh, shoot, I forgot how to program an ID. You could go on here and you can go to the how do I program or how do I set up my product, and you can find the video or the document that shows you specifically how to program an ID or retrieve a report or something like that, or even run the troubleshooting test or to do the sensitivity test. We have the brand new chat feature. So if you go to our website, bottom right corner, it says chat. If you need to chat with us, but you can't call us, our hours are Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Central Time. You can access the chat. If you do access the chat, you'll need to be at the computer that has the control center, and also have the babies plugged into a charger along with the accessories and the instructor key. That's going to be the best way for us to assist you. You can also email us, send your questions to productsupport@realityworks.com. Be specific in the questions. So if you have battery related problems, let us know. Like, I lose all power when I unplug the charger. Baby is going into regular battery shutdowns. No matter how long I charge the baby, it's not charging beyond half. Be specific. So if you're having battery problems, let us know exactly what kind of battery problems you're having. Or if you have a communication problem, let us know what that specific communication problem is, so that we can make sure that we assist by giving you the proper response right away. Or you call us at 800-830-1416. Option 2. Please be at your computer. Have the babies plugged into the charger, along with the accessories and the instructor key. That's going to be the best way for us to help you. It's going to be very difficult if you're not with the babies or not at your computer and you need some assistance. So call us at that 800-830-1416. Option 2, and our hours are Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. until 5 p.m. Central Time. So I'm going to take a few moments here before we log off for anyone who may have questions. I thought I had the chat window up here. Where is that? So if you have any questions, please take this time right now to ask them. Otherwise, you can, again, contact us by sending your questions to productsupport@realityworks.com. There we are. Okay. Okay, I want to thank you all very much for this webinar. I hope this was helpful. And this was my first time doing it from my home. And so I hope it all went well for you. And this is being recorded. And anyone who did register, whether you showed up or not, will get a copy of this. And those who did who are on here right now will still also receive a copy of the webinar as well, so that you can, it'll be on a link and an email that you can access whenever you need it. And I hope this was helpful, and everyone have a wonderful summer. Stay safe. And again, thank you so much for all that you had done this springtime with COVID and all the distance learning that you all had to do. We're very proud of you and so grateful. Thank you all, and have a great summer.